I Should Be Writing number 372. Hi there, welcome to I Should Be Writing, the podcast for wannabe fiction writers. I'm your host, Mur. And yes, it's been a little while, and I'm sorry. There's been some travel, and I took a week off to go to a writing retreat in the Tennessee mountains. And it was pretty good. It was really productive. I got a lot of work done on a new novel. I got a short story written. Yeah, it was good. But then, of course, it threw me off my regular schedule, and I haven't been able to record since I got back. But there's new Ditch Diggers that I need to edit, and I'm recording I Should Be Writing today. I'll reiterate for anybody who's a listener that I'm not doing interviews for a little while, because I got too full up last year and was always running behind, and felt bad about that. So I need to get back into recording regularly, get in that groove, and then get stuff online. Or stuff scheduled. I'm going to mention something here, and it may prove unpopular. But I will remind you that you listening to this is an opt-in thing. If you do not want to listen, then you are free to not to. If you are a Patreon supporter, you are free to not support. Someone mentioned that perhaps I should not talk about politics on my podcast because maybe not everybody has the same political opinion that I do. And first, yeah, I'm pretty aware that a lot of people don't have the same opinion I do because I live in America and I see what's been going on for the past couple of weeks. Pretty clear. Second thing is, I've been someone to stay back from controversy. I'm not a good arguer. I'm afraid of confrontation. However, I really do believe that the current state of politics is attacking the arts. Literally, the NEA, National Endowment for the Arts, that's under attack. If you want to be a full-time writer, you need the Affordable Care Act if you don't have a spouse with health insurance. You need that health insurance. You need an affordable way to get health insurance if you don't have a day job. So if you don't have the ACA, then you probably, unless you're independently wealthy or really, really, really selling a lot of books, you can't afford health insurance. There are attacks on the First Amendment all the time. The idea that Border Patrol can look at your social media feeds through your phone when you cross the border. That's horrifying to me. There's too much going on that is important to writers. And if you're a writer who doesn't care about this, fine. You don't share my concerns. But I've decided that in 10, 20 years, however long it takes us to get out of this mud pit on fire that we're in, when we're out, and I look back on 2016, 2017, do I want to say that I was somebody who sat back and watched and didn't want to rock the boat, even though the boat was sailing on mud that was on fire? If this were Ditch Diggers, I would be more colorful here. Or do I want to say that I was somebody who spoke up? I was somebody who used my megaphone, my microphone, for what I believed in. And I decided I wanted to be the latter. This is not going to turn into a heavily political resist podcast. Don't worry. But these are things that are affecting every single writer I know. Whether it's people who are just blocked because they're so afraid and so worried about everything. Or it's because they're afraid of their health insurance going away, or afraid of their grant funding going away, or whatever. It's affecting a lot of people. And so when it comes up, I'm going to talk about it. And when it doesn't come up, I'm not going to talk about it. But if it bothers you, then please unsubscribe. Stop supporting the Patreon. I understand. If something that I listened to and supported suddenly started showing heavily current administration supporting rhetoric, I would probably unsubscribe too. That is your prerogative. But I can't, in good faith, not mention the threats that I believe are here for creative people. So, that is my stance on talking about politics on this show. It's gonna happen. Because it's pretty damn impossible to separate the current political climate with writing. It's just not happening. On to other topics. What's been going on with me lately is 6 Weeks seems to be doing well. It seems to be selling steadily. I haven't gotten any numbers yet, but everyone seems happy. I'm learning there's a lot of vague descriptors in publishing and in Hollywood right now. Because when they say words like good and soon and excited, those essentially mean nothing. Because nothing changes after they say these words. So I'm getting more and more skeptical every time I hear something that's not an official statement. It's like X is happy with Y. My next word is, and what happens now? What is the effect of X being happy with Y? I know I'm being very vague, but I'm just saying that if producers are interested in your work, that's great. And editor is happy with sales. And so I'm feeling kind of lost right now. I'm working on brainstorming new novel ideas, which is tough for me because I realize I like to let novels sit in the back of my head for a little while, and I need to come up with some new ones. But I think that's how I wrote 6 Weeks, which might have been why I was so nervous about it in the first place, because it hadn't been sitting in the back of my head for so long. Who knows? Today, I hope I get this out in time. Today is the last day to nominate for the Hugos, and if you're a nominator, I would like to mention that Ditch Diggers and I Should Be Writing. I think Ditch Diggers has a better chance because people usually like podcasts with more than one host for Fancast. And Mothership Zeta is eligible for semi-prozine, which makes me eligible for short-form editor, which is just baffling. Yeah, it's a weird time, this whole award season. I do want to say the thing I really, really want to get attention is not my thing at all. It's an album called Splendor and Misery by the hip-hop group Clipping. If you've heard of a rock opera, this is a hip-hop opera, and it's science fiction, and it's about an escaped slave on a starship. And the album has a code in it. There's just one thing that sounds like a lot of static, but you can someone saying like Charlie and Foxtrot and Delta and X-ray, and so there's a song that's just a code. And the keyword to solving the code is in another song. I mean, this is a fascinating project, and it's really good. It's just awesome to listen to. So that is my push for short form dramatic work. Splendor and Misery by Clipping. You can learn more about them on the. You can find some of their live performances or videos on YouTube and find all the literary references. There are literary references from N.K. Jemisin, Octavia Butler, and Samuel R. Delany in this album. So Afrofuturism, hip-hop, science fiction album with awesome literary references. Anyway, you can find out all the literary references if you look them up on genius.com. But I love it so much, and I want everyone else to love it and give it the attention I think it deserves. If you're a Hamilton fan, this is the hip-hop group that Daveed Diggs, also known as Lafayette, and Thomas Jefferson heads. So it's If you like his stuff in Hamilton, you'll probably like his stuff in clipping. There's my ad for the thing, and it's not really an ad, it's more of an endorsement because I love this album so much. So I guess I will talk a little bit about personal stuff. Something weird happened lately. I am very, very close to an official diagnosis of adult ADD, attention deficit disorder. I have a relative with ADD, and I don't have his problems with keeping focused, so I never considered it. And I was mentioning to somebody that there's a gardening project I wanted to do, but I know it's going to be a lot of work. And so I know myself well enough to know that I will eagerly go and buy all the stuff, and I will bring it all home, and I'll work maybe for 2 hours on it, and I'll get tired, and then I won't go back to it. So I'll have wasted money and time, and now I've got this half-finished gardening project just taking up space. And I was complaining about this and just thinking, I'm just not gonna start the project. I thought this was me being smart. And someone's like, that sounds a lot like ADD. I'm like, no, I'm 43. I don't have ADD. I've never had any of the problems that I've heard kids with ADD have, or adults. And then I looked it up online and, I actually do. Just various things like, if you have a big project, it's hard to get started. If you're done with all the hard stuff in a project, it's hard to finish it. Frequently late to places. Oh God, that's me. Essentially, all the things that I thought made me a little bit flaky might be ADD. So I went to my doctor, and she gave me a little, we talked for a little bit, and she gave me a form to fill out, and it had two sections, I should say. And the first section I answered very high in, and the second section, which is what I considered ADD, which is frequently interrupting people to take the conversation in a completely different direction, unable to meet people's eyes when they're talking. I'm okay at all that, and I thought that was more of an ADD thing. And she said that, yes, it is. For children, not always in adults. So, why is this important? Well, I've talked about my depression, and ADD apparently goes hand in hand with depression and anxiety in adults. But this is a new thing that I have never really considered, and so I've already been trying to get better care of myself with meditation and yoga, which are two things that they recommend if you don't want to do medication. Frankly, I'm scared of the medication because I know it's a stimulant, and I'm somebody that if I get too much caffeine on a bad day, I will get really, really angry. It triggers some sort of rage thing in me. And so I've cut back on caffeine a lot, but it doesn't happen as often now as it did a couple of years ago, but it's there. And my antidepressant is already a stimulant, so I'm a little bit worried about what happens if they give me more. So I've been trying to do the whole, hey, let's take care of ourselves thing. So I'm doing yoga and I'm doing meditation. I'm trying to be nicer to myself. So many people still ask me about, what's my everyday schedule? And then I think about it, and I don't really have one, and that makes me feel bad about myself. And so the self-loathing begins. Because I try to do what's on my list, and if I can do what's on my list, I feel good, and if I can't do what's on my list, I feel bad. I wish I could say that every day has a certain amount of time for writing and a certain amount of time for podcasts and a certain amount of time for admin, which sounds super simple, but it doesn't end up that way. Today I was going to go to a coffee shop and work on novel ideas until lunch, and when it was 11 o'clock I realized I hadn't left yet, so I figured I would record and then go out to lunch. And then maybe work this afternoon. I don't know. And I think this is an ADD thing where it's hard to manage your own time. It's really tough. Whenever I look at the large email list and I get overwhelmed, I actually close my eyes and I move my cursor around the screen and click on an email, and that's the one I deal with. And I usually go through the entire list that way, but I find that easier to have fate choose an email for me to answer than me actually decide on an email to answer to get it done. How does this affect my actual writing besides what I just mentioned? I don't know, because I've only been aware of this fact for about a week now. My doctor wants to send me to a psychologist to get an official diagnosis to see if they want to put me on meds, because the meds being a controlled substance, she wants to go through the proper channels to get it. So that's why I say I have an unofficial diagnosis. I think this also causes a lot of my inability to decide what to work on next. I've been wanting to write interactive fiction for a long time. And I don't know what I'm waiting for, but clearly my mind is waiting for something to get started. That's ridiculous. It's like, is it waiting for permission? Is it waiting for grand knowledge to bestow itself upon me on exactly how to do it? I don't know. It's just really, really frustrating. I suppose this is more of a meta podcast, the state of the podcast, state of the world, state of the mer. As I'm getting older, and recently saw an oral surgeon who felt the need to remind me that I was over 40 many, many times. You know, if we do the surgery on you, usually 1 out of 2,000 people will have nerve damage, but your odds are higher because you're over 40. This surgery would have been a lot easier when you were 15, but you're over 40 now. Because I am over 40. Thank you, oral surgeon, for reminding me of that. I am realizing that, yes, all those things they tell you are important usually are. Like taking care of yourself. You really do need to take care of yourself. And I am getting more energy. I'm not getting any better focus yet, I'll be honest. But I've only been doing the yoga and meditation thing for a couple of weeks now. And not every day. But, trying to be better to my body. Trying to sleep better. And hoping that my output, my productivity will increase. And my focus. That's a big thing, my focus. So coming up in future episodes, I want to talk about story structure. I've been reading Save the Cat again, which is a screenplay structure, but it's pretty solid storytelling structure, whether it's screenplay or novels anyway. I want to go back to some basics, character basics, dialogue basics, and I'll probably start doing interviews again in May. So if you want to ask me questions, email mightymer@gmail.com. The blog and show notes are at merverse.com, and I am available on Twitter, although I've been taking more time off Twitter for mental health, at mightymer. If you are a Hugo voter, remember to vote for Fancast. If I'm not one of your top 5, that's cool too. But you know, if you have 5 that you like, vote for them, because votes are important. Yes, I want your vote, but I'm not going to ask for it unless you think it's worth it. So, Ditch Diggers, or I Should Be Writing, or Mothership Zeta. Thanks for your patience and your patronage and your listening. And I think together we'll get through this. And all the while, we're dealing with all the stuff you should be writing.